Niti Aayog's Northeastern Region District Sustainable Development Goal Index para amikala state Nagaland ge worst performing state lagate tigina ase. Itu according to index Nagaland do ledo choida jagara bishi poorly perform kurigina ase. Tando ase guledo no poverty or good health and well-being, affordable and clean energy, sustainable cities and communities, industry and innovation aro infrastructure. Aja amikhan logode Khekiye Sema tai do ekta retired IAS ase aro social activist ase tai logode itu laga board kotha pakru lesi to ahibi amikhan sob manu tai laga bhavna idu janilobo. Hello sir, welcome to Nagaland TV. As a social activist and a fearless person by nature, what is your stand or opinion on the recent Niti Aayog's ratings on the development index where Nagaland literally stood lowest under all development parameters?
The subject itself, SDG is a rather big perimeter of assessment within which each state's performance is being rated. And as Mr. Niba Krunu has been trying to defend the poor performances by saying it wasn't the lowest performer, that others like Assam and Meghalaya were also there, Arunachal. But here the issue is not to compete with who is doing badly. Comparing ourselves with somebody who is doing badly is not a way of a competitive spirit, especially for the fact that when we are looking at the broader picture of really establishing an environment where the citizens at large are given the basic elementary facilities, amenities that make our life better. Now, in as far as the state government is concerned, their performances definitely has not been good. And I think there are just too many factors that are involved in producing a result such as this, because it requires a very well-governed, peaceful environment in which a government should be able to plan and execute every projects and developments without interferences from anywhere. But as far as the system in Nagaland is concerned, you see, the core problem begins from the people. We curse the government for lack of performance, but we have to look at the criticality as to why the government actually starts doing badly, because the manner in which we elect our representative into the responsible positions are all incorrect. As a democracy, the franchise is a very important right that is being exercised that makes or unmakes ourselves. When we choose good people, people who are capable, people who have feelings for the general good, you see, when we get people like that elected, then the natural thing would be to work towards the greater good of the people. But the unfortunate part here, as I said, the vicious cycle that I talk about starts from the people. We sell our votes. The moment we sell our votes, everything but everything will go sideways, because, you see, when these MLAs or the candidates that enter the fray have to buy our votes, every vote now in Nagaland is perhaps costing 10, 15, 20 in terms of lakhs also. There are some upper level influential people who sell their votes are getting in terms of 10, 15 lakhs along with even a Bolero. Bolero has become a standard election gift, So they spend crores of rupees in order to get elected. Now, I normally say we cannot blame the lack of performance in the government basically because when they are elected in the manner that they are elected by having to buy votes from the people, that the people also sell. You see, as a human being, the best of us reaching a place of position under those heavy financial expenditures have no choice but to recuperate whatever investment that we have made during the elections. And so, you see, many of the people that go into election, they are mortgaging their property, selling property. Some are even mortgaging their own living house, just so that they get money to buy votes. And when this happens and they get elected, the first primary thing is to recuperate this investment that they have made so that they can save the property that have been otherwise mortgaged. So the moment they are elected, the first thing that happens is a serious politicking of who should get what portfolio. And most of the ministers would be fighting for, departments that have a bigger budget. And so there's a serious horse trading, and the chief minister's work in such a distribution of portfolio becomes a very, very serious problem for him, because everybody wants a big department. So the reason why they want big department is obvious. They want to make money from the budget that has been delineated for the department itself, and thereafter they don't look at the rules and regulations that are to govern the plans and execution of those plans. They will give work to contractors that give them the highest commission. It means, in simple terms, highest bribe giver is the one who is going to get the contract. So the contractors also get into the groove of things where they pay the ministers quite heavily for each development project that comes in terms of crores, let's say. They pay heavily to the minister, then the commissioner secretaries or secretaries in charge. Not that all of them are to be put in the same yardstick. There are some decent officers that are desperately trying their best to work within the norms of rules and regulations, but the politicians are insistent, you see. So without following the norms, they want A or B contractor to be given because they have received that commission. Now there are, even in the bureaucracy, many of the bureaucracies actually are anxiously waiting for ministers to give illegal orders, for them to implement a project. Because normally the regular way within which a project work is assigned to contractors is by bidding. They have to advertise, the contractors bid, and the lowest bidder is supposed to get the contract. But these rules of tendering or whatever is all done perfunctorily, if at all they do it. But even the secretaries, when they get this kind of an order, just some of them go into the pretext of saying, no, this is not legal, we cannot. So the contractor has no choice but to offer the secretary some commission as well. Then you have the engineers. Then you have the SDOs and the overseers in the field. Every single one of them have some kind of a percentage being looked for. The end result is when you have, let's say, 1 crore rupee of a project fund, more than 60% of the fund is already exhausted and expended before the contractor can actually execute the work. And by the time, the contractor is also doing work because he wants to benefit, make some profit out of it. And so at the end of the day, 1 crore given for a project, hardly 10 lakhs is probably getting into the actual work. So you are using 10 lakhs to complete a project that has been estimated at 1 crore. That is more or less the kind of system that is prevailing as of now. And the ministers will carry on giving this kind of an order where rules and regulation are not at all put into the frame of governance. The end result is corruption becomes a very systematic way of actually limiting the possibility of good projects that can be executed that is durable. Now, you see, I'll just give you a small little example here. You see, in the first generation people, there were people who were elected free. Our people didn't know how to sell votes at that time. They didn't even know. But they were good Christians. And so the first generation people that entered the political field were elected by virtue of their abilities and characters. They were good people, you see. And when they had performed during their years, let's say 1965, 66, when the first ministers' houses were built in the old Ministers' Hill, our present ministers are still living within that building that were constructed in 1965, 66, 67. Why? Because contractors didn't have to pay bribes to the ministers or to the secretary or to the engineers. The end result, he had the full budget with him. And he worked completely with the perspectives of using good materials that are durable and execute the work to the extent where he makes a profit, but reasonably. So the end result is the quality of work that has been implemented have lasted all this while from 1966, 7, 8. Buildings such as the old Ministers' Hill, where ministers still live, still are erect, whereas those houses that have been built of a recent years in the past, many of them have been started to be repaired before you even actually occupied the house. You see, the quality of work has been so poor that the later constructions are having to be repaired annually, year after year. Serious repairs are going on. So that is more or less the quality of work that impacted impacted because of the corruptive ways within which we do things. And it's a cycle. We sell votes. The candidates that win want to recuperate that loss. Therefore, they do anything but anything. Rules or regulations are thrown out of the window in order to make as much money as quickly as they can to recover the property's mortgage or even start collecting money for the next election because they're going to have to buy again. So these are the ways of a vicious cycle, as I said, is in operation. And as long as the people of Nagaland realize this one fact, there's no point in complaining that the government is performing or not performing, because we have caused it. We, the people, have caused it by selling our votes. You see, so this is a very serious, cancerous problem that the state of Nagaland is undergoing. And I do not know when we can ever convince the general public the impact of selling our votes. You may get 5,000, 10,000, 1 lakh, it doesn't matter how long that does last. And that's very individual. Whereas that act of mine totally destroys the continuity and the quality development. That is all negated by that very act of our selling votes, you see. And our public, most of our public, the majority will never realize this, the greed factor. I think that's a very serious kind of a problem that not only the church, but every other reliable and responsible NGOs must let the people know, and the tribes respectively must know the very crippling effect of selling votes during the election. And when you put that on the scale, You see, I have always said, even a rat without brains, if he has money, can get elected in Nagaland. Huh? Our dogs, our cows, our pigs can get elected in Nagaland as long as they have money. And that's exactly what it is all about, you see. So that's where we are headed.
Sir, ido Amikan la leader. As a piece of work, Nagas will never surrender in the battlefield, but many Nagas will fall when money is shoot through the barrel of the gun. So, do you think corruption also plays a vital role in the low performance of our state?
Oh, well, everything is revolving around the matter of earning fast buck, and that's more or less the uppermost agenda in all of the people that represent us, starting from Chief Minister downwards to wherever. Every single one in position are always looking out to earn some money, rightly or wrongly, legally or illegally, as long as they can get an opportunity. They'll throw it out of the window as far as the rules and regulations are concerned. And the serious problem is that there is no accountability. When an officer has been caught misappropriating funds, there has been no action taken on the defaulting party. You see, Nagaland has never discharged anybody on account of defrauding, financial misappropriation. Some excuse or the other is given, and people continue, and therefore, when there is no accountability, a government that cannot establish accountability in its own performance, there is no chance of any good coming out. Therefore, money definitely has become the most important factor where all Nagas are slipping every day from whatever. You may feel that certain thing is right, but as long as you are paid handsomely, you close your eyes and allow whatever to happen. And that's exactly what we are doing. We are watching the government perform very poorly. Bad roads, bad health care, bad everything. Government institutions, educational institutions produces the worst of results. There's no accountability. You see, nothing is accountable. But as I said, no matter what it is, the final responsibility rests with the people, the common man. As long as we do not hold our own responsibility and elect people that are worthy to be leaders, we are just not going to make any change soon enough. And therefore, I would agree with Mr. Fizo. Yes, in the battlefield, Nagas have done gloriously well in the past. There have been a lot of really courageous Naga national workers. And as the years went by, the ceasefire came in, and once there was some semblance of peace, they started killing each other. Why? Because they were fighting for taxation turf, even the national workers. So they were killing each other. What for? Money. They wanted to tax the people without impediment from any other factions. So they were killing every faction that was entering into their area that they want to command as their own for taxation. So they killed each other over the fact of territory control, all on account of issue of money. They call it a national tax, or you call it sovereign tax, you call any other tax. The simple definition of that so-called sovereign tax and national tax is simply extortion, nothing more than extortion. You see, because even they are not accountable. Undergrounds or the national workers, they don't have a system of taxation. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is a tax collector. And how much reaches the headquarters, even they don't know, you see. But they don't know that the public are being harassed day in, day out, every day of their lives by these national workers with so many factions, every single faction collecting taxes, you see. So What Mr. Fizo says is basically the fundamental aspect of the truth, that the system Nagas will fall on account of money. And that's exactly what's happening, you see.
Sir, recently, itu Amigan laga planning minister Sri Nipa Kronobra clarified grishe itu la issue de ki it was basically due to the insurgency problem that led to such low ratings. So, what is your stand on that?
No, to a degree, I would say he wouldn't be wrong in saying that, because all the big projects, just like, let's say, even for the recent cases, the 4-lane road construction that was going on, we have land problems, I mean, the landowners' issues as well, but once that has been sorted out, when the execution of work is there, the system that I explained, from the bureaucracy side, these contractors go through hell because a lot of bribery has to be conducted. But the worst of the lot is the factions coming and taxing, and when it is 30, 40, 100 crores, 300, 400 crores of work, the taxation, as they call it, the national workers, go in terms of serious percentage of 5, 10% of the actual money that has been earmarked for the project. Now, no contractors can actually perform their work successfully. So the first batch that had come in, they have already given up, run out of the funds basically because the burden of bribe goes beyond reasonable limits. Now, earlier, when this 4-lane issue was there, some issues concerning the bribe had come up. I had made some written observations about this. And NSCNIM was the one that was trying to explain that they were supervising the construction work. Huh? Who the hell are they to be supervising projects that are delineated or being executed by? Huh? And because of their supervisory responsibilities, the projects cannot go, because when they say they supervise, they're supervising money. At gunpoint, you may ask them to work, but financially in the background, they are taking such a huge amount, so the contractors find it awfully difficult to implement the way they should. The quality is compromised. So undergrounds are definitely doing a serious damage here. Of course, they would prefer to be called national workers. Earlier, they were called undergrounds. Now they are referred to as national workers. But to a great extent, you see, it is a fact of life. I was in the bureaucracy, and I know that every development departments that are there in Nagaland are paying 5-6% to the factions at source. When there are projects that are to be executed by a department, the factions actually ask that 5-6% should be deducted from the source itself and paid to them. You see? And not only that, and the fact of the matter is the national workers are actually getting 5-6% of the development funds from their respective departments. But at the field, again, after having taken the central tax, at the field when the projects are being implemented, they are taking tax again from the engineers and the contractors, you see? So there's no system, as I said. Their so-called national taxation has no system. They tax 4 or 5 times, you know? Every commodity that is coming into Nagaland are being taxed 4 times at the minimum, down to the implementation of even the simplest vegetables that you buy in the market. All are being taxed by the national workers. There's no system. You see, so when they are taxing the people in various ways without any accountability, you see, one day or the other, I've been saying, one day or the other, when there is a normal way of existence where a government will have to answer. Even they, as national workers, after they've dropped their weapons, their AK-47 is taken away from them, and they have to work as people, a regular people. Question might just arise by the people who have suffered the burden of their taxation for so many years, and the people might just raise a question: what did you do with the money that you have taxed us all these years? Because they are not doing any development work. They are obstructing all the development works instead. And whatever money they are getting, many of the upper echelons of the factions are multimillionaires, billionaires, big business tycoons. You see, and when they joined the national movement, 1,001 of them were just poor, down-to-earth people with nothing. Perhaps just had their pant and shirt that they were wearing and no other property at all. They have become, royalty now, you see. That tells a lot of stories as to what is happening with all the taxation that the people are paying them. And one day or the other, the people might ask this very critical question: what did you do with all the tax that you have taken from us? And then we check the property of each of the senior people, or at least at certain ranks. Many of them will find it very difficult as to how they acquired all the massive properties that the senior people have, you see. So I think there's a serious situation here, and so it is a fact. It is a fact that the insurgency issue has definitely a very serious impact in not being able to do the jobs correctly, and the government is unable to stop this because the people who are in power, in one form or another, these factions have been responsible for they being elected. The national workers normally will publicly declare that it's an Indian election and we do not acknowledge. We don't care about the Indian elections. We shall not be a party to that. Publicly, they will announce this, but when it comes to the reality behind the scene, in fact, all the political parties are bribing the national workers seriously heavily at the party headquarters level, so that all their candidates, wherever they are contesting, are not harassed by the national workers of what faction or the other that operates in the area, so that they are allowed to actually work without fear. You see, but many of the people that, after being paid, the faction, are going into the field and convincing one party or the other to ensure that Mr. A, B, C, D is elected. That is the kind of influence they impose on the people. And so, by virtue of having taken the support of one faction or the other, especially the IM, you see, the government that gets elected is already indebted to the factions, having taken their support and help to get elected. So when they ask for 5% development tax, it is illegal. Chief minister or any ministers cannot do this. And yet they close their eyes and allow it to happen because they are afraid to tell the NSA to back off. You see? So here is a compromising situation in every perspective of governance where the factions are interfering. And they, in fact, are much more powerful than the state government. The shadow government, as they are referred to, I'm more than inclined to say that the factions like the NSA and IM are more the governing system of Nagaland rather than the state government's elected representatives. So they become the government, and the elected government is something like a shadow government instead, you see? And that is exactly what is happening here. So I think, yes, insurgency has definitely a great role to play, but as I explained earlier, The whole corruptive system, the vicious circle that I spoke about, is also another factor. So you put them together, and Nagas have had it. We are going nowhere, and no matter what kind of visionary statement they may like to propound as Vision 2030 and so on and so forth, it's good in paper. At least they have something in paper, but they know that these are something that can never be achieved with the kind of system that is prevalent at this point of time.
So talking about the opposition-less government, what would you say on the opposition-less government as an intellectual yourself? Don't you think that that would amount to stifling democracy without checks and balances?
See, I keep saying, in a bureaucracy, an opposition infrastructure is an absolutely prerequisite, because a government that is not performing well, the opposition is supposed to point it out and ensure that the government in power, the party in power, actually governs the system with rules and regulation as part of an executing norm. Now, when there is an opposition, a government has to be very careful, not become blatantly corruptive, openly corruptive, but because they will be answerable to the opposition. And the system where, as I said, we do not have any accountability here as a way of governance. There is no accountability. And so everybody that has done something illegal still gets away with it. Even with a strong opposition, it still happens. Now, minus the opposition, what picture do you see? And they are using solution as a reason for this united picture of all the elected members sticking together to speed up the Naga solution. Whether all the 60 MLAs are joined together or not joined together, they are not going to be able to make any difference in as far as the political solution is concerned. And by way of eliminating the opposition and joining the mainstream, the NPF, which is the strongest only opposition, have done a serious disservice to the people of Nagaland. You see, now they have joined the mainstream, and my point of view in this, and I have written about it as well, is that, well, they are joining the mainstream, joining the government with a very good sounding reason to say we are all collectively joining up so that together we can bring about a speedy solution to the Naga problem. It's a good sounding projection, as it may, but the bottom line in it is election would soon be coming after a year. And if they remain in the opposition, they are just not going to be able to make any money by the time the next election comes, and having to buy votes, they know they will have lesser chances again. Now they are joining the government, and by being in the mainstream, they also will exercise their own little influence and get opportunities to earn money. That is all they are at, you see? But to make it sound honorable, they are making use of the Naga solution as a part of it. There is no honor in this. There is absolutely no honor in this, and they can give any amount of excuses they want to give to say that they are doing it for the greater good of our people. The hell they are. They are not. They are destroying democracy, and as I said, it's an absolute prerequisite for any government to operate with certain degree of efficiency, knowing that there is an opposition that will check them if they do wrong. You see, that mechanism has been destroyed, by the opposition of Nagaland by joining the mainstream, it means from now on, even if they in a broad daylight robbery, they commit all kinds of illegalities, there's not going to be anybody who's going to question them, you see? So it's a open field now for corruptive system to go full steam ahead. That's all it's going to be. And that's about the end limits of what you call the opposition-less government. It's a Nagaland style of democracy. Huh? Nagas can be the only people who can devise a whole lot of theory about what democracy, good democracy is all about. Their definition is opposition-less government is the best government you can ever have because it's united. Yes, it is united so that they can together rape the system, steal the funds, and let the poor people, the common people, live without any kind of change in the lifestyle in terms of convenience or in terms of the facilities that are duly deserved. We are not going to get any of it. So that's the way it is. It's a Nagaland-style democracy. And the political philosophers within the NPF and whatever, these are great people with great theories of why opposition-less government is the best government system in their kind of democracy. Yes, it's good for them. They can make a lot of money.
So how would you rate Rio's government during the past 4 years in a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, to put it in that simple way of rating, after having said all that I have said, how the system, corruptive system is being carried out without any checks and balances, without any accountability. If the scale is from -0 to 10, perhaps it would have been better. Because even 1 would have been a very high rating. That's the way I look at it.
Thank you so much for sharing your views and opinions on the issues out here in Nagaland, sir. Thank you so much for staying with us. Moi se Komida Nungdi with camera person Suchan.